My stepfamily threw me out at 17, now they want me to house the same stepbrother who laughed as I packed my bags. Hi Reddit. I'm in a really weird and emotionally draining situation with my family right now, and honestly, I'm struggling to figure out if I'm actually the bad guy here. My thoughts are a mess, and I feel like I just need to hear from people who aren't in the middle of all this, because the folks around me are making me feel like I'm some kind of monster. I'm 30 now, and I've worked hard to build a solid life for myself. I've got a steady job in a good-sized city, a comfortable 2-bedroom apartment that I pay for on my own, and I'm in a good place financially. It took a lot of effort to get here, and I'm proud of that. My stepbrother, let's call him Leo, is 32. He recently lost his job, and his apartment lease is up at the end of this month, so now he's looking for somewhere to crash. Last week, my mom and my stepdad Mark, Leo's dad, gave me a call and asked if I'd let Leo stay with me for a few months while he tries to get back on track. Now, on paper, I get it. My apartment is in a city where Leo would have the best chance of finding work in his field, and I do have a second bedroom that's mostly just used for storage and the occasional work-from-home day. Logically, it might make sense. But I told them no. Just a straight, clear no, and after that, everything blew up. Now I'm being called selfish, cold, and unforgiving. They say I'm stuck in the past and refusing to be a decent family member. According to them, I'm the problem, and they're making sure I feel every bit of the guilt. So, to make any sense of this, I need to go back and explain the past, because that's what this really comes down to. My biological dad passed away suddenly from a heart attack when I was just 10. It was one of the worst times of my life. About 2 years after that, my mom started seeing Mark. He seemed okay, a widower with a son, Leo, who was 2 years older than me. They got married not long after, and just like that, I had a new stepdad, a new stepbrother, and a new house. The first couple of years were, alright, I guess. It was a lot of change to take in. Mark was never outright mean to me, but I always felt a bit like an outsider. I was my mom's kid, and Leo was his. Mark provided the basics, I always had food and a place to sleep, but there was no warmth or real fatherly connection. Leo and I acted like typical step-siblings. For the most part, we just ignored each other. When we did talk, it was usually him teasing me, mocking my music taste or making fun of the posters I had in my room. It was annoying, but nothing I couldn't deal with. Things started going downhill when I turned 16. Mark's construction business hit a serious rough patch, and he started losing money fast. My mom and Mark were fighting all the time, mostly about finances. I'd hear the shouting through the walls at night. Mark would yell about how tight money was, how there was an extra mouth to feed that didn't belong to him. He never said my name, but I knew who he meant. I tried to shrink myself, stay out of the way. I stopped asking for anything unless it was absolutely necessary. I got a part-time job at a grocery store just to cover my own expenses, like my phone bill or grabbing lunch with friends. But it didn't matter. No matter what I did, I still felt like a burden. Leo picked up on all of it. His usual teasing turned mean. He started calling me a freeloader and would make snide comments about how much I was costing his dad. He'd say it when my mom wasn't around, but always loud enough for me to hear. The final straw came a few months after I turned 17. I was on the school's track team, and my running shoes were shot holes in the soles, falling apart. I had saved up some money from my job, but I was still about $20 short. I hated asking, but I had a meet coming up, so I went to my mom to see if she could help cover the rest. Mark overheard us talking, and he completely lost it. I've never seen him that angry. He wasn't just yelling at my mom, he turned on me, too. He raged about how tired he was of this constant need, said he was working himself into the ground to keep the lights on while I was just draining his finances. According to him, I was practically an adult and needed to learn how the real world worked. My mom tried to defend me. She was crying, begging him to understand that I was still a kid, that I worked hard and barely asked for anything. But Mark didn't care. He steamrolled over everything she said. He shouted that he'd done his duty, put a roof over my head for 5 years, and that was enough. Then he looked at me and said I had 1 week to pack my things and leave. I froze. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I looked to my mom, hoping she'd step in and stop it, but she just stood there sobbing. She didn't say Mark was wrong. She didn't tell me I could stay. She just cried. And in that moment, I realized I was completely on my own. I went to my room and fell apart. I was terrified. I had no idea where I was going to go or what I was going to do. I started shoving my clothes into a duffel bag, my hands shaking, my tears soaking everything. The door to my room was open, and Leo was just standing there in the hallway, leaning against the doorframe. He didn't say anything at first, just watched me pack. When I finally looked up at him, he had this smug little grin on his face, like he was enjoying the show. Then he said something I will never forget. He looked me right in the eye and said, "You know, you kind of deserve this." He told me I'd been leeching off his dad for years, and it was about time I got kicked out. Then he just laughed and walked off. That broke something in me. The way Leo looked at me like I was nothing and chose to twist the knife when I was already down. That cruelty from someone who was supposed to be my brother? It stuck with me. A few days later, I left. I crashed on my best friend's couch. Her parents were saints, they let me stay there through the end of senior year. I worked almost full-time at the grocery store, going to school during the day, then working until 10 p.m., coming home and doing homework half asleep. After graduation, I picked up a second job cleaning offices at night. Every penny I made, I saved. I started out at community college, then transferred to a state school. It took me 6 years to finish my degree because I had to work the whole way through, but I did it. I did it on my own. A few years ago, my mom reached out to me out of the blue. She was crying on the phone, apologizing. She said not standing up for me was the biggest regret of her life. She admitted she was scared that Mark would leave her if she pushed back. We've been slowly rebuilding a relationship since then. We talk on the phone. I see her during the holidays. But it's still fragile. I keep my distance from Mark. I'm polite when I have to be, for my mom's sake, but I never forget. As for Leo, I've only seen him a few times in the past 10 years, usually at family events. We exchange a quick hey, then avoid each other for the rest of the night. We've never once talked about what happened. So when they called last week asking me to take Leo in, I was caught off guard. I went quiet for a second, then just said no. My mom asked why. I told her I wasn't comfortable with it. Then Mark grabbed the phone, already sounding irritated. He started lecturing me about how hard things were for Leo right now, how I had a great career in this spacious apartment all to myself. According to him, the least I could do was help my brother out for a bit. That's when I started to get seriously mad. I told Mark, look, Leo's your son, not my brother. And I reminded him point blank that they kicked me out when I was a teenager with absolutely nowhere to go. Mark brushed it off like it was no big deal. He said I was being dramatic and that it all happened a long time ago. According to him, he was under a lot of pressure back then, and maybe he didn't handle things perfectly, but hey, I landed on my feet, didn't I? So, as far as he was concerned, everything turned out fine. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told him it didn't just magically work out. I told him about how I'd had to juggle 2 jobs, how exhausted I was, so much so that I'd literally fall asleep on the bus some nights. I told him about the constant fear of not making rent or not having enough to eat. I told him I made it through in spite of what they did to me, not because of it. Then my mom got back on the line. She was crying and begging me to please reconsider. She told me Leo was a changed man now, that he'd been an arrogant, foolish kid back then and that he felt bad about everything that happened. So I asked her straight up, has he ever told me that? Has he ever once said sorry? And she just went quiet. That's when I told her something I had never shared before. I said, Mom, when I was in my room crying after your husband told me to pack my things and leave, Leo stood in the doorway and laughed at me. He looked me in the eye and said I deserved it because I was a burden. Silence. Complete silence. Then Mark took the phone again, and he was fuming. He snapped that Leo would never say something like that, accused me of making it up just to manipulate them, and claimed I was clinging to old bitterness to punish them all. That was my breaking point. I lost it. I started yelling. I told them they had no right, none at all, to ask me for anything. I said this apartment, this home I've built, is my sanctuary. It's the place I created for myself after they ripped my first home away. And there was no way in hell I was going to let someone who treated me like garbage live here. I told them to delete my number. And I hung up. Since that call, my mom has been texting me nonstop, pleading, guilt-tripping, trying everything. Then my aunt, her sister, called me. She said my mom's a mess and that maybe I should just try to be the bigger person for the sake of keeping peace in the family. She didn't say I was wrong outright, but the implication was there. And now I feel like I'm losing my mind. I know deep down that I have every right to be angry. I've carried this hurt for so long. But the constant pressure from everyone is making me second-guess myself. Yes, what they did to me was horrible. But it was 13 years ago. Leo's struggling. Am I being cold and unforgiving for not stepping in to help him now? Update 1. Hi again, everyone. First off, thank you, truly, for all the comments and messages. I've spent hours reading them, and I won't lie, I teared up more than once. I've felt so alone with this for so long, and hearing complete strangers validate my feelings meant more than I can put into words. Seeing the overwhelming not the A*** cold verdict felt like a weight I didn't even know I was carrying suddenly lifted. It gave me the strength to hold my ground when I was really starting to doubt myself. Before I share what's happened since then, I want to clear up some things that people brought up in the comments and DMs. I realized I left out a few details to keep the original post from becoming a novel, but those missing pieces matter. A lot of people asked why Leo can't just stay with my mom and Mark. And that's a fair question. A few years after I left, Mark's business never fully bounced back. Eventually, they sold the house we all used to live in and downsized into a small retirement condo in the suburbs, about a 90-minute drive from the city. It's a tiny 2-bedroom place. The second bedroom is my mom's craft room, stuffed wall to wall with her supplies. There's no basement or den. No extra space. If Leo moved in, he'd literally be sleeping on a loveseat in their living room. So while they're pushing me to take him in, they're not in a position to offer him space themselves. And I think that's part of why they're coming down on me so hard. They're desperate. As for Leo, he hasn't been a complete mess his whole life. He had a solid job for the past few years and was doing fine. Lived in a nice apartment, paid his bills. But a couple of months ago, his company went through a major restructuring, and his entire department was laid off. So now he's unemployed, and it came out of nowhere. The main reason they want him to stay with me isn't about emotion, it's logistics. I live right in the city, close to public transportation, surrounded by job opportunities in his field. From their place in the suburbs, it would be expensive and exhausting just for him to get to interviews. My apartment is the most convenient option, and they all know it. Now, about my spare room, some folks wondered if it was just a tiny junk room. It's not. It's a proper second bedroom, complete with a window and a closet. I use it as a home office a few times a week when I work remotely. I've got a desk, my computer set up, and even a daybed with a trundle that I keep for when friends or actual loved ones visit from out of town. It's a functional, important part of my living space, not some unused storage room. People also asked where the rest of my family was when I got kicked out at 17. And, honestly, that's a painful one. After my mom married Mark, we slowly drifted away from my dad's side of the family. I didn't really have anyone left on that side. No grandparents that I knew of. My aunt, my mom's sister, lived out of state at the time. And here's the thing, my mom was so ashamed of what happened that she lied. She told my aunt and the rest of the family that I had a big fight with Mark and chose to move out to have more freedom. No one knew the truth, that I had been forced out with nowhere to go. And I didn't tell anyone either. I was scared and proud and embarrassed. I didn't want people knowing that my own family had tossed me aside. So I went along with the lie. Okay, hopefully that fills in some gaps. Now, for what's happened since I posted. Just like many of you predicted, the next person I heard from was Leo himself. He didn't call me at first. He sent a text a few days ago. It was awkward and vague. Something like, "Hey, heard you talked to mom and dad. Hope we can talk." I didn't answer right away. I stared at that message for hours. Part of me just wanted to block him. But another part felt like, maybe I needed to face this. And honestly, the support I got here gave me the courage to do it. So I finally texted back, "I'm free to talk after work tomorrow." He called me the next evening. It was one of the most uncomfortable phone calls I've ever had. He started with some weird, forced small talk about the weather, then jumped right into it. He said he heard I had a spare room and that things had been rough lately. That it would mean a lot if he could crash with me for just a couple of months. I didn't interrupt. I let him finish. Then I just went quiet. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore and just asked him, "Leo, are you seriously calling me to ask for a huge favor without even bringing up what went down between us?" He got flustered right away. Started fumbling through his words, mumbling something like, yeah, I was gonna say something. Then he said our parents had told him I was apparently upset about some stuff from when we were kids. Some stuff. That's what he called it. I didn't respond. I just waited. Let him sit in the silence. After an awkward pause, he coughed and let out this long, dramatic sigh like he was being inconvenienced, and said, "Look, man. I'm sorry, okay? I was just a dumb, moody teenager. Probably said some stupid things. We were all dealing with a lot back then, with Dad's business and everything. That was it. That was his apology. No actual acknowledgement of what he said or did. No sincerity. Just a vague, throwaway line like he was checking something off a list. It felt like he was doing it more to satisfy our parents than to actually make things right. I could feel that same rage rising in my chest, the kind I hadn't felt in years. But I tried to stay calm. Took a deep breath and asked him quietly, "What stupid things are you talking about, Leo?" He paused, like he didn't expect me to challenge him. Then he said, "I don't know, man. I don't remember exactly. It was forever ago. I was probably just being a jerk." And that's when something inside me just snapped. I told him, "Oh, I remember. I remember every second. I was crying. I was shoving my whole life into a duffel bag because your dad was kicking me out of the house. And you stood there in the doorway, grinning like it was a game. You told me I deserved it, that I was a burden, and that you were glad I was leaving. The moment I said that out loud, everything in the conversation shifted. He instantly got defensive. His tone turned cold. He said he didn't remember it that way, claimed I was being overly dramatic, said there's no way he would have said something that cruel. Then he turned it around on me, accused me of twisting the story to make him look bad, claimed he was just trying to apologize and move forward, but I clearly wasn't interested in letting go of the past. Then we were both yelling. It got ugly fast. I was screaming at him, calling him a liar. Told him he was trying to rewrite history, to gaslight me about the most traumatic moment of my life. He shouted back that I was bitter, unstable, and holding a grudge just to make him suffer. He said I was the real problem now, throwing ancient history in his face when all he wanted was some help. I lost it. I told him he was still the same cruel person he was back then, no matter how much older he got. And I told him not to ever contact me again. Then I hung up. Not even 30 seconds passed before my phone lit up again. This time it was my mom. Leo had apparently called her right away, probably sobbing about how mean I was to him. And she came at me hard. She was yelling, completely hysterical, demanding to know how I could be so cold when Leo had tried to apologize. She said I'd hurt him deeply, that he was just a kid back then and I was punishing him as an adult. Then she hit me with the real kicker. I didn't raise you to be this hateful. And I said, you didn't raise me at all after I turned 17. Then I ended the call. Since then, I haven't spoken to any of them. No calls. No messages answered. I've been feeling every emotion under the sun, furious, exhausted, sad, confused. The fight with Leo was bad enough, but hearing my mom defend him while tearing into me all over again, it ripped open every old scar. And yet, deep down, I still know I did the right thing. That so-called apology? It wasn't real. He didn't mean a word of it. He didn't care about the pain he caused, he just wanted a place to stay. Your support in the comments helped me see that for what it was, and I'm seriously thankful for every single one of you who helped me stand my ground. I'm not sure what the future holds between me and them, but for now, the answer's still no. Final update. Hey again. This will probably be the last time I post about this whole mess. The past few weeks have been absolutely draining, but it finally feels like I've reached a point where I can breathe again. Things have settled. I've made peace with where I stand. And believe it or not, I've gotten some closure. Right after that blow up with Leo and my mom, I went radio silent. I blocked Leo's number. I muted my mom's calls and texts. The constant buzzing and guilt-laced messages were wrecking my nerves. I needed space, just a moment of peace to sit with everything and figure out how I actually felt. During that time, I kept going back to the comments on my last post. They grounded me. Anytime I felt guilt creeping in, I'd reread a few and remind myself that I wasn't being cruel, I was protecting myself. Then, about 2 weeks ago, my aunt, my mom's sister, called me. She had reached out before, encouraging me to be the bigger person, but this time? Her tone was different. Completely different. She didn't start with anything about family or forgiveness. The first thing she said was, "Honey, I'm so sorry." She told me she'd finally had a serious sit-down with my mom after our fight. She wanted my mom to walk her through everything, start to finish. The full story about what happened when I got kicked out. And for the first time, my mom actually told her the truth. She told her everything. Even the part one had told her recently about Leo standing in the doorway, smirking, telling me I deserved to be thrown out. My aunt said she was horrified. She told me she let my mom have it. That she tore into her, asking how she could possibly think it was okay to ask me to open my home to someone who had been so cruel to me during one of the worst times in my life. She said she made it very clear, they hadn't just failed me back then, they were still failing me now by trying to bulldoze my pain for the sake of Leo's comfort. Then she just listened. I talked to her for almost an hour. Told her everything, how terrified I was when I got kicked out. How hard I worked to stay afloat. How completely alone I felt. How Leo's words that night felt like the final betrayal that broke me. I cried. A lot. She never interrupted. Never tried to downplay anything. She just let me feel it all. And when I finished, she told me what I had needed to hear for so long, that my anger was valid. That I had every right to protect myself. That I wasn't a bad person for saying no. It was the first time anyone in my family had ever truly acknowledged my pain. And it meant everything. A few days later, I got an email from Leo. The subject line was just my name. At first, I was going to delete it. But then I saw the preview of the first sentence, "I'm not writing to ask for anything." So I opened it. The message was long. And, surprisingly, it felt real. It was the kind of apology I had needed to hear for 13 years. He wrote that after our fight and especially after getting chewed out by our aunt, he finally started to really think about what happened. He admitted that, at first, he was angry. He felt like I was attacking him. But the more he sat with it, the more the memories started to come back. And then he said it. He said he remembers now. He remembers me crying in my room. He remembers standing in the doorway. And he remembers saying those words. He said he didn't have a good explanation for why he did what he did, just that he'd been a stupid, insecure, and angry teenager. He told me he'd heard his dad complain for so long about the financial burden I supposedly was, that it eventually sank in. He started believing it. Started resenting me for it. He said he was basically just repeating his dad's bitterness, like it was second nature. And when he was frustrated with life or angry or just feeling powerless, I was the easy target. He admitted that seeing me so upset, so scared, should have made him feel something human. But instead, in that moment, it made him feel powerful. Like he mattered. And he said he's deeply ashamed of that. Then he wrote something that caught me completely off guard. I'm going to share it exactly how he wrote it. You didn't deserve what happened to you. You were a kid, and you were our family. What my dad did was wrong. What my stepmom allowed to happen was wrong. And what I did was despicable. It wasn't a stupid thing, it was a cruel thing. I broke your trust and added to your pain when you were at your most vulnerable. I have no right to ask for forgiveness, and I definitely have no right to ask for a place to stay. I get it now. I'd say no to me too. I'm not asking for anything. I'm just saying I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I said. I'm sorry for how I made you feel. And I'm sorry I denied it when you first confronted me. I read it 3 or 4 times. Slowly. Carefully. And I didn't feel some wave of relief or instant forgiveness. There wasn't this big emotional release like you'd expect from the movies. I just felt still. Like something heavy that I'd been carrying finally stopped pressing on my chest. The anger I'd been holding onto for over a decade didn't erupt, it just slipped away. I sat with it for a few days. Thought about what to do next. Then I wrote him back. I told him I believed his apology was real. I said it meant something to finally hear him acknowledge what happened, to stop dodging it or rewriting the past. And I thanked him for that. But I also told him my answer hadn't changed. I said, look, I accept your apology. I genuinely want you to land on your feet. But you can't live here. I explained that my apartment isn't just a place to sleep, it's the only space I've ever had that's truly mine. It's where I feel safe. It's where I feel calm. And his presence here, no matter how much he's changed, would be a reminder of the worst time in my life. A memory I've fought like hell to move past. I told him I wasn't going to compromise that peace I worked so hard to build, not for anyone. But I didn't just cut him off completely. As a final gesture, I sent him $500. I told him it wasn't a loan, and it wasn't something I ever expected back. I just didn't want him out on the street. I told him he could use it to book a week or 2 at a cheap extended stay motel while he looked for work and a place to rent. I made it clear that was the absolute limit of the help I was willing to give. One time. Nothing more. A few hours later, he replied. All he said was, thank you. I understand. Then my mom called. Her voice was low, soft, completely different from the last time we spoke. She apologized again, but this time it felt genuine. No guilt trips. No manipulation. She told me she finally understood why I made the decision I did, and that she wouldn't push me anymore. She just said she was glad we were still speaking. Our relationship still feels fragile, like it could crack if either of us says the wrong thing. But for once, it feels honest. No pretending. No pressure. As for Mark, I haven't spoken to him. And honestly, I don't know if I ever will. Maybe someday, maybe never. But here's what I do know, Leo isn't my responsibility. Not anymore. I'm no longer angry. I don't lie awake thinking about him. I don't wish him ill. I just let it go. I finally closed the book on a chapter of my life I thought would haunt me forever. And I couldn't have done it without the support I got here. You all gave me something my own family didn't: perspective, clarity, and validation. You reminded me that standing up for myself doesn't make me cruel. It makes me whole. So thank you. You helped me find the strength to protect my peace. And that, more than anything, has made all the difference.